Iowa's News Now, celebrating 70 years of Eastern Iowa's history. Now, here's your host, Nick Wide.
Good evening, and welcome to our celebration tonight of 70 years of television right here in this studio at Broadcast Park. There are so many incredible history-making moments that happened in this building over the last 70 years, and we're going to share some of them with you tonight. But we thought it'd be best to begin with the man who started it all, William B. Quarton.
This is a great day for us, and I hope it is for you too.
As station manager and founder of what was then WMT-TV, Quarton was the first person to welcome Eastern Iowa to television. But it was not an easy road to get there.
We had saved up. We had quite a little pot saved up, but not enough. So I went to my banker here to try to get an extra $300,000, and I couldn't get it.
Quarton went all the way to Minneapolis to get the funds he needed, and construction began right away. Not along the busy thoroughfare Broadcast Park is a neighbor to now, but a farm field on the outskirts of Cedar Rapids.
The big news tonight concerns the WMT television antenna, because today they began raising the antenna sections to the top of the tower.
That day would come September 30th, 1953, which just happened to be the same day as Game 2 of the World Series between the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Yankees. But NBC had the broadcast rights to the World Series, and Broadcast Park would be a CBS affiliate. So Quarton sent sales manager Lou Van Nostrand to New York to ask permission to air the game. NBC said yes for $5,000. Van Nostrand remembered Quarton's reaction.
Where do you propose to get the $5,000? And I said, well, that's your problem. That's not mine.
Quarton says NBC never asked for their money, and he never reminded them.
It was a wonderful business, and still is.
And we couldn't agree more. In those first days and weeks of broadcasting in 1953, we launched our first newscast, bringing you local news, weather, and sports. In the spirit of Weather First, we thought we'd begin there, including the story of our first meteorologist and how he forever changed the landscape of meteorology across the country. In the early days, it was radio personalities that delivered the forecast from the Shell Weather Tower. Of course, it was just a platform in the studio. But in the late 50s, managers got the idea of hiring someone who knew how to forecast the weather. So in 1957, Channel 2 decided to get a real meteorologist by the name of Conrad Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. It appears now that our rain is not going to arrive as far in any appreciable...
Fresh off his active duty in the Navy, those first newscasts were beyond basic, with an art easel and Conrad sitting on a stool drawing his maps.
So you were just writing on
poster paper, kind of like poster paper,
Okay.
colored poster paper.
By the 1960s, the process got more advanced with pre-built maps and...
You used shoe polish on the boards, and you could go out and prepare, 10 minutes before you went on air.
The 60s also saw a major revolution in weather forecasting, and much of it was born here at Broadcast Park. After the Palm Sunday tornado outbreak in 1965 killed hundreds and injured thousands more across several states, Conrad convened a meeting of weather leaders from across the country here at Broadcast Park to come up with a new way to cover dangerous storms.
We developed a watch and warning system, and it came in two stages. A watch was indicative that the conditions were favorable for development, right. And the warning came after somebody had sighted one.
Also in the mid-60s, we reached out to our neighbors at Collins Aerospace, then known as Rockwell Collins, to bring a new piece of weather technology from warplanes to viewers, radar.
They said, let's try this. Just put it up on the building and see if it'll work. And we did, and it worked.
At the present time, the radar shows a band of thunderstorms about 15 to 20 miles wide, extending from just west of Manchester, southwestward down through about Shellsburg, west of the Lynn County line, and then on down in toward Williamsburg. Chicago had actually the first one. We were the first one west of Mississippi.
By the early 80s, the old radar gave way to a new Doppler radar.
I still think it's probably one of the best displays because it simplified what was going on in the atmosphere for viewers. But it was an exciting time because computer technology was really coming into play.
But more importantly, a Doppler radar network across the country could finally measure wind speed and direction in a storm, witnessing the formation of a tornado and providing warnings before touchdown.
And it looks like this may be a very long night for us all indeed.
We're out here for hours on end. It really passes by pretty quick because you have no concept of time.
But with the rise of the internet, much of that information is now in the hands of anyone who wants it.
And in the original days, Conrad would, he had a shortwave radio. He could plot everything there as well. And by the end of my career here, people were calling me up saying, well, you didn't look at this model, or did you realize that this model was doing this? Go, really? Because it was available on the internet.
This is a multi-vortex wide tornado. You can see the entire mesocyclone on this tornado rotating.
And that's where putting experienced eyes in the field has now become more important than ever. Iowa's News Now has been able to bring you the formation of tornadoes live on the air.
Okay, shoot. Yeah, we're good. We lost the window.
And warn you before the unthinkable happens where you live. It is that educated expertise that you cannot take out of forecasting.
Once again, I'd like to mention that all the watches and the warnings have been canceled at this time. We are experiencing thunderstorms at the present time over much of the...
You know, as somebody who's been chasing storms for more than 20 years, I can tell you how important resources like the Road Warrior can be when tracking dangerous storms here in eastern Iowa. It is a reminder of the commitment of our past, present, and future to keep you safe. Still to come, the men and women that have brought you the news, both in good times and bad.
This is just a sign of how serious the situation is. Floodwaters rising at a rapid pace, and on top of that, we have this rainstorm that is just barreling down rain.
The faces you remember and the moments none of us will ever forget.
Can I ask you guys what you're dumping?
As we celebrate 70 years of television at Iowa's News Now.
Is somebody lining their pockets here?
Yeah, well, I don't know.